Welcome into another week of Every Day We're Covering. Chris Parks, SJ Munoz with you once again to talk all things in the sports world, recap some picks for you, make some more picks for you, and it's March Madness time, SJ, one of the best times of the sports year.
So we can officially say it. It's kind of like that most wonderful time of the year in college football bowl season. That's akin to that. Not quite there, but we're getting close. So it's nice to see some of these big games and also do some bracket busting, or maybe not. I mean, I don't want to bust your bracket, but you know what I mean. Get some brackets put out there for the the office pool or the family bragging rights, what have you.
We trade out the holiday tunes for the Luther Vandross this time of year and get.
I'm good with that. Yeah, bump that all day.
The ball is about ready to be tipped, folks. It's always a good time. I honestly, as a fan, like, of the sport itself in basketball, I mean, and I think you and I are kind of on the same page as far as like things that we just love in general. You know, the game itself, both like playing it, both like watching it. You know, it's one of those things. I think it's kind of ingrained in American culture pretty hard these days, and it's just fun. These couple of days, especially those first 2 days when you get the tournament full slate and you've got the 3-4 games going on at a time, you're trying to track what game's going well and what one's not, and watching your bracket. And to me, those are two of the best sports days of the year. Maybe you could argue a few other, big things along the way, but I think it's hard to beat those two because there's just so much to take in, and it always, gives us some surprises and fun.
Well, especially over the last few years, just the access we've had to all the games. You remember, not so long ago, you're kind of score bug watching and kind of trying to find out, if you don't have access to a radio, what's going on with all the games. But now we get to watch every single one we want, and with the multi-view settings and functions. It's kind of like heaven for me, at least. I'm sure you're there with me. So I feel maybe a sore throat or maybe a headache coming on there for the end of next week. May just be maybe on my couch nursing a little bit of ailments.
No doubt. I did not get my vasectomy scheduled, so I guess I'm going to wait another year for that. But
you might be a little more dedicated than I don't know if I'm going that far. I might, maybe I'd say I'd get one, but then I wouldn't, and then that's probably some bad karma coming my way. So I probably don't want to go down that road. I'll just stick with the sore throat.
Yeah.
Or bad back.
There you
can't
go.
really question that too much. On my back hurts. I can't sit at the desk, but I'll get the laptop laying on the couch, something like that.
Yeah, I got to lay on the couch, guys, for a couple of days here, get better. Great time of the year to enjoy. I think a lot of, and the fun part of it too is it brings so many people together. Even people that don't give a rip about sports, you always get the office pools, and everybody kind of has their interest, or they pick things by the mascot or the color, and half the time those people are smarter than the ones that think they know something. So it's just fun. I guess as far as from our perspective, what we talk about a lot on the show, gambling, gets people into it big time, and now even more so than ever.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of action to be had those few days, and even just starting. I mean, here tonight, there's some. Last weekend there was conference championship games. I didn't get into those ones too much, but this week we're definitely gonna hit it hard and then carry through end of the month, probably early April. I'm guessing is I'm not sure the date off top head, but it's got to be that first weekend in April, that overlap of March, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
For the Final Four. So I was looking forward to it. Like you said, just gets other people involved. I know. Kind of mentioned I don't really like the crossover of reality or celebrity TV with sports, but I like when actual sports crosses over into the general public and everybody's interested and can have fun with it. So I'm all about this and all for this. It's like you said, fun for everybody, and you don't have to know anything, and usually do better the less you know.
Yeah. And always provides us great moments, and we'll get a lot of them here again this year. I think we will. It's the way it's kind of shaping up with the teams that are out there, but should be a lot of fun to follow along with. A couple of other things on that topic that we'll get into here as we move through this show. We'll, of course, recap how we did here this last week, highlight a few of our picks here for you. And then what we're going to do this week on the program is go through conference tournament time, because that's what's going on this week. Everybody trying to get that automatic bid to get into the NCAA tournament. tournament, and we'll talk about the major conferences and who we think is going to win some of those. And of course, that might be an implication on who we think is, a team that could really go a long way when it comes to the big dance as well. But that's what we're going to hit hard on here this week on the show. As we get started, we always love to join our bracket with some beverages as well. I mean, a lot of folks like to do the beverage bracket. I guess probably won't get into that. Maybe we will here in a week or two. I don't know. We can throw that in the mix. But we always like to talk about what we're drinking on. And SJ, I stumbled upon this the other day in the store, and I do remember a while back reading about this being something that was probably going to come out. And at the time, I was pretty excited about it, kind of forgot about it. And then I saw it on the shelf, and I'm like, oh, yeah, I got to try that. And it's something that's definitely right up my alley. And it's going to be something that not everybody's going to love. I'm going to say that because I think people are pretty divided on this flavor in general. But the fine folks at Leinenkugel's have started to sprinkle in some different flavors of their kind of, summertime type beers. One of them that they put out is called Lakeside Cherry. I haven't tried that one yet, but the one that I got and I've loved, I've already bought another 6-pack of it because I'm a grapefruit guy. It's the Grapefruit Shandy, and this stuff is phenomenal. If you like the taste of grapefruit, you're gonna love this beer because it's just so smooth and crisp, and it's kind of that natural flavor. You're not getting like a fake anything going on. This is going to be one that's going to be in the heavy rotation in the summer for me. I can already tell. How about yourself?
Yeah, I know they've obviously been around for a long time, and it seems like within the last couple of years or so, they've kind of hit that shandy. That's kind of been like their thing. They've really put in some pretty good ones too. So I mean, why not if they're popular? But it seems like that's kind of been a market they've really hit hard and done well at. So I'd definitely give that a swig or two. I'm kind of open to most flavors, and I'd love to try and see what it's like. My I guess ever since I was a youngster, I've always been kind of a root beer guy. I can remember riding the old bike down around the corner. There's a machine with 2 quarters back then, get you a can of Barks.
Oh yeah.
So I remember just riding that 10 speed over there and getting some Barks. So with the weather being nice, I don't know, kind of made me feel like reminded me of my younger days, taking the bike out for a ride. So we hit about 75 today here, so I was feeling pretty good. So going back to our friends up in Weston, and this is honestly, I believe, if I'm remembering right, I was kind of thinking back too. I think this might have been the first product of theirs that I ever sampled. It's the Real Hard root beer that they make. Obviously, just kind of like everyone's got their almost version now, just the hard version of the root beer, just the soda. But theirs packs a pretty good punch, 6.7% by volume. So I mean it's real good. There says molasses, botanicals, and along with the sugar, of course, in there. But the pure cane sugar, at least it's pure, so we're good there. But yeah, and it's always been a root beer guy, so I was feeling good. A sunny day. I don't drink much actual soda, but I was like, yeah, I'll dig into these for at least have a couple of these on a nice sunny day. So hit the deck later, fired up the grill earlier. So it's pretty damn good day.
Yeah. For us Midwesterners, this gets us fired up and ready to go. Cause you feel that nice warm sunshine. The wind wasn't too terrible today. It was a little bit breezy, but it was, tolerable. Yeah. We went out and got the patio furniture uncovered on the deck and set back up, and it's like, oh yeah, we're back in this mode.
You mentioned the wind, and it's like, I swear maybe this is just a me thing, and I know your area is a little bit windier in general than where I am, and it's not that far apart, but it's just once you hit that wherever that split is, it just seems like it just winds from hell come out of nowhere. But at least in I swear it's never windy until I go to light the grill or get the fire started, and then I'm like, where did this come from? I mean, I know I talked about that's just another thing that knows with my habits or whatever. Whenever I go light the grill, I swear that wind just kicks up out of nowhere. I don't know. Maybe it's just a me thing, or just you don't notice it until you're not paying attention. Then you actually need a calm day and it's not there. But we got it lit, no problem. Yeah. It's always kind of funny. I'm like, where the hell did this come from?
Well, and that's always one of the hangups. I mean, if you're not from this part of the country and you don't spend a lot of time here, you don't experience the big weather changes like we do, obviously. And that usually is what the deal is. Like, we get a turn where, okay, here comes some warmer weather. Well, it's going to come with 20 to 30 mile an hour winds because that's what's bringing the warmer weather. So it always is like, damn it, we got to get past these first windy ass couple of days, and then we'll enjoy some good weather because it'll calm down. But yeah, everything ushers in with wind one way or the other, whether it's going to be cold as hell or hot as hell. That's what's bringing it here, and we deal with it for a couple of days. Always seems like.
And it got more daylight now too, so I'm good with that. Like
Exactly.
I'm that's one I love that. I know people complain either way. I'm just this is this is where it always should be if you ask me. There's no use of being light when I'm inside or at night. Just keep that daylight during the daytime.
Yeah. If we can get these a-hole congressmen to get on the same page and just say, this is it, we're staying daylight time, I would be very, very happy because that's the way it needs to be. It's kind of funny. We were talking about this in the office earlier today because, obviously everybody, always a hot topic when the time changes. Oh, I lost my hour or whatever. But I did look up, there was a time for like 2 years after the World War II where they did permanently set daylight time as the time. The eventual argument and complaint that ruined it was the fact that kids and commuters had to go to school and work in pitch dark in the morning. And that's why they switched it back. Like, I kind of get that. And it was probably more dangerous back then. But now, right. I'm like, everybody's got their lights and, it's fine. Let's just go to work. Everybody's pissed off in the morning anyways. Let's just let it be dark and we'll get the evening sun. That's what I want.
Yeah, you'd rather spend your time at work in the dark. That's fine. And also that the technology now is just obviously the types of, the lights on the cars and things like that we have now that probably shouldn't be as big of a deal. And also, I know there's a lot of school districts in this area. Some days they don't go get, the kids are waiting at the bus stop at 9:00. They're not starting school till 10, or they're getting out like at 2 a couple times a week. So the schedule is just a little different. I know there's even a handful of 4-day school week districts around here. Mm-hmm. So it's things change. So that's one thing that I think I don't know why it doesn't. Besides, like you said, people just kind of make passing comments and stuff. It never seriously gets considered compared to some of the stuff that does. It still does blow your mind because it literally does kind of affect your lifestyle. I think there just be a little bit more of an emphasis put on it, but who knows? Maybe one day someone will get in there and cause some change, ruffle some feathers.
Yeah, they have made a little bit of incremental progress. If you followed along with the different states and stuff, especially here in the Midwest, because it really affects us. But there have been a bunch of states that have signed on. There's just like a few that are like the holdouts. So that's been the problem. We can't get all these idiots to be on the same page, and eventually maybe we'll get there. But who knows? That's always a hard thing to do when it comes to any sort of political issue. We know that.
Yeah, that's enough of that talk. Yeah, but yeah, no, it'd be nice, and maybe one day we'll see.
Yeah,
or they'll just move to Arizona. If not, I guess.
There you go. They don't give a rip. They don't even follow it. So we'll kind of look back here on a few picks here from last week. We're not going to go through everything that we put out for you there on socials, just because we're trying to get a little heavier with that as we move along. I know SJ's been doing a great job with that almost every day. Really, you've been putting something out there for folks to follow along with. I'm getting there. I'm getting better. I'm doing a few days here and there. I kind of usually get down on myself for a day or two and then get back at it again. And of course, some days are just, in nature have more stuff going on than others. So that's the way it goes. But when we first talked to you last week, we did make some picks for kind of like the Tuesday night segment. And here's how that went. I had Oklahoma. They were laying 5, and they ended up having to go to overtime to get it done, and they only won by 3. So I biffed on that one. 74-71 was the final in that game over Cincy. And then Kansas State, I was looking for over 150 or over 143, and they got there. They got to 158, so did pick up that one. The other basketball one we had on there that SJ had was Purdue, Illinois, was looking for the under 163.5, and that was good as well. 148 was the total on that bad boy, so we did all right there. And then I know you were looking at a couple of other NBA ones that night too, and off the top of my head, I'm not remembering results there, but I think you were on the short end of those ones, if I'm
I know
mistaken.
For sure the Celtics didn't cover because I believe they ended up losing. That was when the Cavs came back and bit them in the ass, and that was when I was like, either the Celtics are going to blow them out, or Boston's just going to keep rolling through as they have been. And obviously, as we saw, they didn't come out so well on that side. Nuggets and who was the other? Hold on, give me one second. Nuggets and Suns was what the other one. I was looking for the overs. on that game. I
Yeah, you
believe we hit
just
it by
got there.
one.
Yeah, one
Yeah, we
point.
just covered it and went to overtime too. So that was one. Now I woke up and I was like, "Oh, baby, here we go." So that was a nice morning wake up call there. But yeah, like you said, we're doing a lot of plays, so just follow along and you know do as you will. Come be with us or against us either way. Let's have some fun with it. And like you said, we're gonna try to do just a lot more quantity. It's just I don't know. There's always something going on. We might as well kind of make a habit of this. But it's a little different too with not having football. It's kind of why we had to make a shift here, just because
Mhm.
you get your days ready. You got your Thursday, likely a Friday, and then of course Saturday and Sunday games out the wazoo. So that's a little bit easier to set your dial by. But we're gonna making some adjustments and we're getting some plays out there still, and kind of got a groove now, I think.
Yeah, and yeah, we're getting kind of into things for sure. I did want to brag just a little bit because I had a last minute feeling on some Arch Madness on Friday, and it came through for me because you and I was getting a point and a half. They ended up winning, advancing that night, and then Drake was laying 13 and a half in their opening round game against Evansville, and they blew them out by like 30. I think it was eventually what it ended up being. So felt pretty good about that. Drake did me right the next day too because I needed them to hit the overs against Bradley. So I hit that one. You and I, though, laid a giant turd. They got absolutely smoked the next night, so I missed on that one. They were getting 7.5. I thought they could at least kind of make it interesting because they had before against Bradley, but were not able to do so there. And then North Carolina was getting a 5.5 on the road at Duke, and I just felt like Carolina was the better team. And definitely getting 5.5. I thought that was kind of being a last bucket type of game, and Carolina really controlled it. They led from early in that game pretty much throughout, so felt good about that one. And then I absolutely biffed on the Kansas Jayhawks again. I don't know why I keep picking
Ooh.
them. I hate them anyways, so I usually don't pick them anyways. But I've been trying to give them some love because I'm like, their starting five is like super talented, but they have absolutely zero depth, and they have just been getting smoked lately. Part of it's because Kevin McCullough has been hurt and he hasn't been able to play. And I think he was supposed to be healthy that day. I looked at the stat line and he ended up with nothing, so I don't think he played much at all, and it wasn't a factor, obviously, in the game. And they just got absolutely blitzkrieg. So their season kind of is tanked here at the end of the year. So I don't feel so bad about that for them, but for me picking it wasn't a good idea. But yeah, I had some fun with that. So that was kind of where we were at the basketball side of things. I know it was a big UFC card over the weekend, SJ, and you kind of made a lot of plays there. Obviously, when you're making picks on a lot of stuff, who knows how you're going to kind of come out in the wash, but it looks like kind of at the end of the day, you went kind of half and half.
Yeah, it's about a 50-50 affair. So not bad when it comes to this world. Honestly, most of the ones, I mean, as far as like on paper, I'd say it was a pretty good card the way they put it together, because I did go a lot of the underdogs, but in saying that, the underdogs were, a lot of maybe plus 175, plus 210. It wasn't like none of these were really landslides either way. So that's kind of what I mean by you never really know what kind of matchups you're going to get, especially when it comes to combat sports. It's anybody's guess. Somebody gets sick, has a bad day, is
Mm-hmm.
hiding an injury. One of the guys blames a staph infection that lost. So who knows what's going on? And in the bottom line, he should have been fighting in the first place. But that's another story. It's in Florida. It's the UFC. Anything goes basically. But I did get most. The prelims went okay, not so great. The one that really stuck in my craw was Gilbert Burns losing. He was kind of going up against an up and coming Jack Della Maddalena. He was, kind of like one of the, is this guy for real or not type of fight. And honestly, Burns had the fight in the bag, man. And in the last minute or so, and he just freaking it was a scramble because he had taken him down and the guy escaped. And he went back to kind of wrestle him again and take him down right away. And I'm just going to call him JDM. That's what they call him anyways. And it's too long of a name to say, but he threw the knee from hell and freaking clock right square on the jaw. And Burns, he didn't get knocked out, but TKO didn't recover. So that was kind of the one that really stuck in my craw. But I do want to give Dustin Poirier and Michael Venom Page. Venom Page actually came over. This is his first UFC fight from another organization. So those two guys did me well with some big victories there. And so, like I said, kind of a 50-50 affair. Nothing too bad, nothing too good. But I didn't not didn't lose really big, didn't win really big, but I'll take it. A 50-50 is decent for especially for a night of fights. The boxing the night before didn't go so well, but that was also kind of a crapshoot when you got an MMA guy going against a boxer. I understand he'd fought Fury before, but still it was who knows what you're going to get. That's honestly what should have happened the first time he boxed, but we know Tyson Fury is kind of a loose cannon, and he obviously wasn't even prepared or didn't take him seriously when the boxer Joshua, who took him seriously, made him look bad and did it real quick. And honestly, I really wanted to pick him by knockout, and that he did easily win by knockout Joshua, but he just it doesn't really have a track record, especially lately. He's kind of struggled and maybe gone through his own mental demons. So just, kind of, having some tough losses, or just, not looking, he always looks the part, when you look at him, he's freaking chiseled out of stone, both of them are. But as far as, just his fight game itself hasn't always been there. So that's why I kind of leaned just the decision. I thought might be kind of ugly again, but it was a hell of a performance nonetheless, even though I wasn't on the winning side of that one.
Yeah, it was good stuff. I did kind of read up a little bit on that particular fight because I thought it was interesting. A lot of people were kind of giving him a lot of credit, for coming out the way he did and winning that one. So always interesting to kind of see how that whole scene morphs and progresses. Of course, we've kind of seen those two entities collide a lot, whether between the boxing and the MMA world, and guys going both ways. It usually seems like it's more so we're going to have a guy that's an MMA fighter try to box, and then typically that doesn't go well for them. Right. But yeah. Of course, we've got the whole news this week about the goofy fight. Oh, I didn't know a dude that could come out of like retirement and box somebody. Of course, he's we all know he's a few brain cells short of a full slate anymore.
Well, the thing too, you usually think something like this at that age and that stage of your life is for money, and obviously I'm sure he's blown through his share of it. But at the same time, he's had his podcast deal for how long, makes appearances left and right. He's doing Netflix shows, documentaries, whatever. Movies, so like you would think he's still, I don't know what he's doing with it, but you think he's still pulling in some decent money these days. So I don't think it's a money grab. Maybe it's just an ego thing more than anything. Who knows? But yeah. I don't know. I guess it's supposed to be just on regular Netflix. So since I don't have to pay for it, I'll probably watch with, one eye open. I don't know. It could be real bad. But then the last thing on that is just the one thing I do I like both sports because obviously I make picks on them. And we watch pretty much all fights. I'll watch them. But I do kind of get tired of when the MMA guy goes to boxing and he loses. It's like, well, you wouldn't beat me in an MMA fight. Well, guess what, buddy? Like, you decided to go box. That was, like, if you were making the money that the boxers were making, you wouldn't have to go do that. That's the bottom line. So yeah, until you want to speak up to your boss and stop letting him ramrod you and treat you like a piece of trash, that's your issue. It has nothing to do with the sport of boxing. So obviously it's a different sport, but it's just kind of like I don't know. It seems like a very kiddish thing to do is, lose at something and, kind of try to blame something that's not really relevant. Reminds you like when you used to play video games or something and, someone, you got the cheat code, huh? So like, it's just not, I don't know. It doesn't really add up. That's not, I don't know. That doesn't belong in the conversation. If you're willing to box, that's what we're talking about. So if you don't want to do it, don't do it. But I don't know. It's kind of like the defense mechanism for the MMA community is once they lose, it's just, oh, they wouldn't last whatever in the cage. It's like, well, maybe they would, maybe they wouldn't, but they don't need to go make your money because why would they go, risk the whole, it's obviously more of a health risk for them because you have more weapons and more, more opportunities to get injured for half the money, probably less than half the money. So, get your bald buddy there to put some of his cheese up, and then I'm sure you'd get a few guys that are crazy enough to take that risk, whether they'd lose or not.
Yeah, that's a good point. It kind of brings up the business aspect side of it, and that's one thing that nobody can take away from what most of us consider an annoying idiot in Jake Paul, but the guy's cornered his own deal. Like he's producing the thing, he sold the thing, he's fighting in the thing. Like the guy's making money over money over money. You can't argue with that side of it, and that's obviously why he's doing it. It's no.
And one thing I do think that could be a good thing to come out of this is if there is a big audience, and I assume there will be just with the amount of Netflix subscribers, and that's kind of also I think there's a lot of a crossover to the YouTube world that would probably be interested in watching him anyways, and aren't necessarily boxing fans, but they're just gonna kind of support somebody they like from their videos or their posts. Maybe, Netflix gets in more of the boxing game and starts showing some actual legitimate fights, and we don't have to worry about paying 70 or 80 bucks, every month or a couple of weeks for the fight. So if that's the case, I'm all about it, and let's do it and do even a few more of these if we have to convince them. But that would be a hell of a trade-off for a couple of clown shows to get some legitimate fights on there. I'm good for that. Sign me up for that.
Yeah, that's a good point. And when it brings in that broader, we've talked about this already, but that broader intersection of media and sports and how everything has changed so much because of the capabilities with the internet, and we've got these different streaming platforms, and everybody's trying to figure out their way and their spot, and we're getting all these now deals between different networks to create what is essentially cable once again, and then we're getting then Netflix, something like Netflix, or even like we've heard talks of, we've seen Amazon do it with the NFL. We've heard them possibly doing it with more than that down the road. They're all kind of dipping their toe in this water because everybody knows that is one of the last bastions of quality capability to deliver advertising is live sporting events, because you don't have any choice but to sit there and see those ads when they come on during a break of a live event. Now, you may choose to walk away from them, and that's always been the case, but it's still one of those last places where you can do that, and that's why it's such a hot commodity. And we're going to continue to see more and more people try to get involved in one way or another, whether they're not the direct producer of it. They might be involved just on a production level. Who knows? It's going to change a lot before all is said and done, but it's definitely an interesting world, that's for sure. When we going to turn the page now into basketball and kind of get into depth on some of these conference tournaments going on here this week. And then, of course, everybody that wins will get their automatic berth into the NCAA tournament the following week. So that's what's always fun about these tournaments is, everybody's on the same plane. Everybody has an opportunity to try to make it to that final dance. And, any team in the country could be a national champion, theoretically, because they can play in their conference tournament, they can win that, get in, and then win all their games in the NCAA tournament and win the title. So that's what always kind of makes it fun, too, and unique from some of the other sports as well, and makes this week very interesting to watch, because we do get a few of those teams that sneak in there and win their conference tourney. And, of course, then that upsets some others that get kind of left out of the foray, and we get those arguments, and that's fun as well. But a lot of good basketball, I think, coming up here this week. There seems to be a lot of teams. I don't know, and I guess as I was looking over this, because we talked about this prior, we're going to look at some of the major conferences. Unfortunately, as I was going through it, there does seem to be quite a few teams that kind of stand out in their leagues. I think there's some that kind of head and shoulders above the rest, whereas some years we're kind of like, I don't know who's going to win that tournament. I don't know if that's necessarily going to be the case as we go on through this.
Yeah, that was the trick for me, is trying not to be so chalky and just pick the favorites. But at the same time, we're trying to be right. So that's what I had to, go with where I thought was going to be the winner, but even in some cases where I just don't necessarily want to pick the top seed. And I obviously didn't do that in every conference, but there's a few of them where it just was really hard to do, but they never play out like we think they're going to play out anyways. But it's this year, more than most, it seems, or more than recent, at least I can remember, it seems like there's a couple that are just it'd be really hard to see them lose, especially with the way they've been playing as of late.
Yeah, exactly. One thing that we are going to do, though, here to try to make it maybe a little bit more intriguing, too, is we're going to pick a winner, and then we're also going to kind of talk about a dark horse that we both have kind of looked at here within the league that we think that maybe this team could jump up and be the surprise, even though we may not pick them outright to win it. We could see it happening. So that'll be part of the discussion. So let's get into it. Let's go on down. We'll just kind of start alphabetically here and go to the ACC, which just had some really good games over this past weekend. There were a couple of really good ones involved. But, of course, the highlight one, and always every year it seems like, is the Duke-North Carolina game. One of the best rivalries in sports. It's always a great atmosphere, and they tend to always have good players and good teams, so that's what obviously makes it fun. But North Carolina has looked good. They got the better of them again on Duke's home court here this last week, so they're looking pretty solid heading into that tournament. but it is a big conference, and a conference that does have a lot of good basketball teams involved usually. So it's one of the ones we always pay attention to and kind of, maybe think that, hey, here's a couple of teams that could be teams that go deep in the NCAA tournament when we get there. But SJ, what do you kind of see in there in the ACC?
Well, I mean, one of the things I was just looking at with these conferences too is just location is kind of always a thing, especially even with the tournament is, where are you going, what's, what seed, what region, all that kind of thing. And it starts right here at the conference tournament. I was surprised to see this is in Washington, D.C. I'm not sure if they've had it there before. I guess I missed it. Maybe I missed the memo. I've always known Greensboro, and I believe, I think that Atlanta, or not Atlanta, what do you call it? They had it down south one year. It might have been Atlanta.
Yeah,
but either way,
right,
it's kind of in that little corridor there, the eastern seaboard, if you will. I don't know that they've gone as that far north, but I mean, they're doing it now. And hey, all ACC people, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you guys go there every few years now. I don't know. But so that I kind of threw that out the window. It wasn't really, of course, the good teams are going to get fans wherever you go. That's a given. But in certain locations, it's just a little bit more rowdy and raucous for certain teams. So that didn't lean me anywhere. As far as the top seed, obviously, is North Carolina, where they end up 17-3 in the conference this year, is what I have them as, in a 6-game winning streak on top of that. That's kind of what I was, hinting towards when I was just saying, as how well they've been playing, it's really hard to pick against them, and they have the body of work on top of that too, with just 3 conference losses. That's pretty impressive, and seem to be hitting their stride. And on top of that, last 2 months, 9-2 record overall. So. It's I gotta go with North Carolina. Well, I was getting them plus 150 though, so you're still getting plus money even though they're the top seed. So it's a fairly decent bet still to make some money on. And like we said, who knows what's going to happen? There's an injury, somebody has an off night or a sickness. Who knows? Anything can happen with these teams. That's why we're kind of going to go beyond just the winner. But I definitely think North Carolina is going to win as a team that I would pick, though, to watch out for, and maybe someone that could make a run. And if you feel like sprinkling, just a little bit of your bankroll on them, I wouldn't go too deep. But they are a plus 1,200 to win it all. That's Pitt. They're 21-10 overall, only 12-8 in the conference, which doesn't exactly get you so excited. But in the last 2 months, kind of similar, just to comparing them to North Carolina, they're 8-2 in the conference. So. Not a bad mark there in the last 10 games or so. So that would be someone that's just if you want to take a flyer wild hair on them, I wouldn't put too much amount on it, but it's worth a shot because I guess if any of the teams, maybe they're the one of the closer to that DC area, and maybe the crowd will get behind them and kind of maybe they can go on a run there. That's Pitt, but that's one team I stay away from. They've done me dirty in the damn tournament so many times ever since Levance Fields and friggin' I'm done with them, and I'll never bet Pitt again. But I could see them making a run, but I'm not gonna roll on them when it comes to the big dance.
Yeah, they were always kind of that team that was like on the brink of like a 2-1 seed. They put a really good season, and they just lay an absolute.
Well, then they'd be like 3 or 4 losses, a 30-win outfit, and they go and just stinker and get beat by freaking like Clemson or something in the tournament. It's just like I don't know what they just had that some kind of a jinx, but yeah, that's kind of how I see the ACC shaking out. There's definitely a few options though. They got usually quality basketball there.
Yeah, well, those Pitt Panthers kind of pissed me off last year because they knocked my team out of the NCAA tournament in the first round. But hey, that's how it goes.
Yeah. Not like you remember anything. Yeah.
Not like I remember. Actually, I kind of was. It was funny because my son was asking me earlier, and he remembered before I did. He's like, no, we lost to Pitt, didn't we, in the first? I was like, oh my God, you remember? Because I was thinking like, I remember the Sweet 16 run, and I was like, no, that was 2 years ago. And I'm looking it up. I'm like, okay, yeah. And like, Carson, you're right. It was Pitt last year, first round. I guess I blocked it out of my memory there for a moment.
Bet him $5 or anything.
No, but. So, anyways, looking at this conference, I'm right there with you. I watched that game, most of it on Saturday there, the Duke Carolina game, just because I always try to catch one of those if I can, just because they're fun to watch. But they're just so balanced. They've got guys that can play everywhere. I mean, R.J. Davis is a great point guard. Obviously, Armando Baycott coming back is just like such a force inside for them when he gets going, and he can pull down a billion rebounds just because he's the kind of guy that has the knack for being in the right spot. And then you throw in a dude that transferred in, Cormac Ryan, who goes berserk on Saturday and makes 6 threes. You throw in that kind of player, it's like, holy crap, how do you beat these guys? I don't think anybody's going to. So I think there's too much balance. I like Carolina to win that tournament as well. There could be some chance they get surprised, but boy, they're going to be awfully tough to beat. My dark horse that I was kind of looking through, this is a team that always is kind of a pain in the arse when it comes to postseason basketball. They like to make runs in postseason tournaments, and that's the Syracuse Orange. I see them as kind of a slight dark horse just because they have beaten a few of these good teams in the conference throughout the year. Now, they haven't been consistent at all. They've been, up and down, terrible at times. But they've got this guy, Malik Brown, who's pretty much a double-double walking every time they hit the floor at the forward spot. So they're always one of those teams that's going to give you fits just because of the way they play. Their style is different, and it always seems to get some people in the postseason. So I would put them as somebody to kind of just keep a little bit of eye on. They kind of set up interesting there in the bracket too. So that's one that I was looking at on that front. When we move on into another conference here, let's go on to the Big Ten. And there are, of course, lots of teams that play basketball in the Big Ten.
More than 10.
About to be more. But they also... I guess I'll start off on this one. This is another one where it's like there's a team that looks pretty damn tough to beat. I know they have been beaten on numerous occasions here throughout this year, but they've always climbed their way back to the top, and they seem to be playing their best basketball here at the end of the season. And that's the Purdue Boilermakers. Obviously, when you have a big force inside like Edey, that's a huge advantage. And then Brendan Smith has just been really solid for them as well as far as scoring the basketball. So, they're another team that's kind of balanced. They've got some guys at different levels. Now, I will say that they have been a team in the past that's been disappointing in the postseason. They've kind of stepped on their toes quite a few times as things have moved along. So I could see them getting stubbed somewhere. But if I had to pick a team that's going to win that tournament right now, that's who I'm going with. I'm going to pick the Purdue Boilermakers to win it. Now, as far as a dark horse is concerned, I'm going to go with your boys, SJ. I think the Nebraska Cornhuskers are somebody that could definitely put a little wrinkle into this system just because of the way they play. They like to shoot a lot of threes. They're a team that can get hot offensively. That's obviously always been the style of Fred Hoiberg coached basketball teams. Offense is number one, and if you can get hot on a certain day, you can take somebody down. They've got the players, they're shooters that can do that. So I could see them making a little bit of noise. But so that's kind of what I was looking at Big Ten wise. How about yourself?
Yeah, I'm glad you said that, so it won't make me look like so much of a homer when I go through my. We're lockstep with Purdue. It's just, 5 wins in a row. They've only lost twice since January 2nd. When you got a friggin', behemoth like Edey in there, it's a tough out anytime, and when they're focused and playing well. But like you said, they have been let down before. They lost as the number 1 seed, did they not, a few years back or a couple years ago, or at one point? If not, they were a 2 seed. But they've pulled out. They've either let some stinkers out there in the postseason. But if I'm with the who I'd pick to win is them. Dark horse with you there. Plus 700 is the number I got for Nebraska to win it all. 7 out of the last 10 they've won on a good streak there. Just looking at the bracket too. Potentially you got Michigan, Penn State winner taking on Indiana. So, out of those 3 teams, Nebraska's beat all 3 within the last, week and a half or so. Illinois would be a tough matchup, but that was a hotly contested overtime game at Illinois in neutral site. So, and you wouldn't have to see Purdue till the finals. So, maybe you don't want to pick them to win at all, and they did beat Purdue, was at home, but so you didn't, so that's kind of the rationale I would put behind that. I did have one other team that I don't necessarily would want to pick them, but I could see them making a run because I didn't want to see them like a total homer. So I want to throw Ohio State in the mix. It'd be a tough ask just because, I think they're going to get Iowa. I really do. They're playing really well. But they've won 5 of their last 6. And this is another team that has beat Purdue recently. That was Purdue's most recent loss. So,
Okay.
I mean, winning it all, you're at a plus 3,500. So that's something you're just going to throw a 5 or a 10 on for the hell of it and say, yeah, who knows, maybe it'll happen. So not a thing, not a big, not a big, not a lot of confidence there for them to win it all. But if you want to pick them to win a game or two, I could definitely see that happening.
Yeah, that's probably a good play there. Like you said too, that's one other thing. When I looked at the bracket, I was like, man, for Nebraska, this is terrific. Like at least to get past that first game. I mean, you're setting up pretty to get in the semis at least. So, yeah, that's a good spot for them. Moving on to the Big 12. So this is obviously another good conference top to bottom, lots of good teams. This one might be the one that maybe gets a little bit more wild, I think, than some of the others, just because you do have a lot of solid teams out there. SJ, what are you kind of peeking at here?
Well, again, I didn't want to do the damn chalk thing, but 9 in a row for Houston. Their last loss February against KU, early February, but they kind of righted that wrong there the last game of the season with just a total ass whooping. So if I'm gonna, whatever, make an actual play, I'll pick them. But I'm gonna return the favor, and I do like Iowa State. They did split with Houston this season, if I'm correct in my research there. So there's a chance there, and of course you wouldn't see them till the finals either. Correct. So they're plus 280. So that's a decent play too for a number 2 seed.
Yeah,
that's pretty good number there. And then I know we talked about how shitty they've played and just they have not been good, but that freaking arena, T-Mobile, is going to be full of them damn Jayhawks, and so Kansas is going to get a boost one way or the other. So kind of maybe along the same lines of Ohio State. Maybe not. I'm not saying pick them to go all the way, but they might pick up a game or two where you would think maybe there'd be a one and done type thing just because of that. They always have that advantage there, just kind of the way it is. But I'm not saying that's enough to carry them to the end unless, they might kind of have one of those, come to Jesus moments here before the tournament starts. But I don't see it happening. That's a real long shot. Plus 1,200, I think, is what I last got them as for to win the whole thing.
Okay.
Which you would think a couple months or even a few weeks ago, you were probably about 200-300.
Oh yeah.
On the plus side of that.
Yeah, that's a wild number for Kansas. That's crazy, especially in that like you said, where they're going to play in that tournament. I looked at this and I can't be like a total homer, so I can't flat out outright. But I'm going to kind of go lock in step here and say that I think it is going to be Houston or Iowa State that wins this tournament. I can't say right now, especially the way the last game went, that it won't be Houston because they're tough. They play good basketball. They kind of play the same intensity wise defensively as Iowa State does, so that's what makes them a little bit tougher. And they've got two really good guards that lead the way. When LJ Cryer came over from Baylor and he was already good, and he adds to an even better team there with Jamal Shed at point guard. They're just solid at that backcourt. So it's really hard to say that you're gonna go against them. Now the X factor may be, if it comes down to it, that this is always historically a great place for Iowa State to play because fans travel like crazy and they will fill that place up if they get to the championship. Obviously, Houston's a lot further away from Kansas City than Ames, Iowa is, so there'll be way more Iowa State fans if it comes down to that. So I think the atmosphere might be one of those things that could push them over the limit. Now, I don't love the way the season ended, obviously, the other day. Iowa State kind of laid a turd on the road against Kansas State, but to me, I kind of felt like one of those was coming. They had been playing so well lately. They got through the home slate unblemished. You're going to lose some of those road games here and there. So I didn't feel overly terrible about that. I'd love to see them scoring some more heading into the postseason. But, when it comes down to it in the postseason, if you play good defense and you have some pretty solid guards, that's going to get you a long way. And Iowa State has both of those as well because Tamin Lipsey and Rashawn Gilbert have been really good out front, and they play great defense. So that's going to be fun. I want to see that matchup because I want to see that rubber match because I think that'll be a great game just in general for college basketball fans. So that's kind of what I'm looking at there. Now, as far as the dark horse is concerned, This team, I absolutely despise watching play basketball, and I'm not even going where you maybe think I'm going. BYU is a team
Thought it
that
was a different B team. Yeah.
BYU, yeah, I hate Baylor too. BYU absolutely can shoot the lights out of a game if they get going. They've got so many guys that can just they just get hot, and they're one of those teams that horks you off because they're what most people would say are scrappy. You know, the guys that are they're gonna dive and they're gonna run after every loose ball, and they get in your head because they just start to pee off a little bit. And and a lot of times if the calls go their way, that certainly helps because they can play that aggressive style. And they've got a pretty good couple of big guys that really know how to pass. That's what's kind of different for them. They've got some guys that can really distribute the ball, and that's what makes them good shooters as well. So if I can see them, if they get on a heater, they could make a couple of kind of fun, little upsets along the way. I certainly don't want to see it, but that's a team that I could see doing that in that tournament. So going to be a lot of fun. I'm excited to watch that Big 12 tourney top to bottom. Should be really good. You've got some good teams. I mean, Baylor's had some really good days. Texas Tech, when they're on, is a pretty decent team. Even TCU's got some solid players. Early in the season, everybody thought Oklahoma was going to be a powerhouse, and they kind of petered out in the middle of the season, and they still can win some tough games. So that's going to be a good one. A lot of good teams involved, and teams that have won games throughout the season. So that'll be fun. Moving on to the SEC. The Southeastern Conference, of course, kind of typically over the years dominated by a couple of teams, whether it be Florida or more often Kentucky, being the teams that kind of dominate the scene. I think there are some teams this year that could shake this tournament up. It could be a little bit fun. We've seen some really good play out of Tennessee. Seen some good play at times out of a team like Florida, or even some of the other schools that you may not think as traditional powers in that conference. But this is going to be interesting to follow along. This is one where I was kind of like, I know something's going to happen here. I don't think this is going to go chalk, just because I don't know. I have a feeling that there's got to be a shakeup somewhere, and this might be the one. I do think Tennessee's really good. Dalton Knecht is a lot of fun to watch. If you've watched them play, he's maybe the best player in college basketball. He's just kind of got one of those games where he can do a little bit of everything. So he's fun to watch. Now Kentucky got him here recently over the weekend, so they're a team that's on the rise, and they're one that obviously could really win this. I think after I did some writing down, I'm gonna go wacky on this one, and I'm actually gonna flip things around because the team I wrote down as my dark horse, I think I'm actually gonna go and say that they're just gonna win this thing because I think something weird's gonna happen. This team has 4 players that are averaging in double figures, and they've got a player coming off the bench that actually has been leading the team in scoring. So interesting, and not the typical basketball powerhouse you think of. South Carolina, they've been playing really well here this year, and they've won some big games. They've beaten some of these big teams in the conference. I just got a feeling that they're going to be the kind of that team that maybe catches a little bit of heat here and wins this thing. Now, I would say that Tennessee is another team to keep an eye on, and Kentucky is going to be the hot pick, I think, too, because they've been playing so well, and maybe that's smart. So that's kind of where I'm going. I'm going to throw a little curveball in there and go with South Carolina in the SEC. How about you?
All right. Well, I try not to put too much stock in one game, but at the same time, that Kentucky Tennessee game you mentioned over the weekend was pretty wild, and just it's one thing to kind of make some high risk circus shots or some crazy type of just be playing out of your mind and just hitting everything's going in, the hoops like the ocean, as they say. But I didn't see that, honestly. I mean, Kentucky was getting to the hoop. They hit a lot of threes, but they were, for the most part, I would say open threes.
Yep.
It wasn't like they were just chucking it up from everywhere. So that might have got a little bit to me. But when I looked into it, Kentucky is on a 5-game winning streak on top of that. So that did kind of make me feel a little bit about picking them. They're kind of hitting the streak at the right time, and also with Calipari, it's a code. They're always built for March. They've had kind of years where they've had an okay season. Even this year, I didn't realize their record was as decent as it was, because you just kind of seem like every time you see it's like it seems like they lost the big game, but then you look and they still got, around 25 plus wins, or around 25 wins, or whatever it is. So
Hmm.
yeah, I'm gonna pick Kentucky. I mean, I guess it's not totally chalk. They're the number 2 seed, so I don't know. I'm not a Rick Barnes guy, and it has nothing to do with him coaching at Texas. It's just that he's kind of choked in the big moments.
Yeah, it's
He's
true.
one of those coaches that hasn't exactly come through in the clutch. So it's more about maybe that's kind of helped my lean that way. And as far as an underdog or someone that can make a run, kind of South Carolina is definitely one I looked at, but I went to maybe not necessarily a similar team, but kind of a similar, I guess, approach, if you will, is just Auburn. They've only
Hmm.
lost 3 games since the start of February, and just like kind of like South Carolina, the comparison I make is just being a very explosive team. Like they've kind of been boom or bust. So
Hmm.
when they're on, I mean they're blowing people out by 20 points, but at the same time, if they're not, they're getting beat by 10 to 15. So that's kind of why I saved them more for an underdog pick, is because if they get on a roll, they're going to be a tough team to beat, because they got the talent. Of course, they got a coach who has been there, whether we may think about him or not.
Hmm.
He has the experience, at least.
Yeah.
So he knows kind of what March is all about. And I mean, 2 of their losses since February that I mentioned are to Kentucky and Tennessee. So they haven't exactly, they've only lost to the top 2 teams in the
Yeah.
conference. So that's something to put, I guess, hang your hat on if you want. Pick them as underdog. It's plus 260 was the last I saw. So maybe they can make a run, a 4 seed. So they would see Tennessee there in the semifinals. So we'll see how that plays out.
Yeah, that's a good pick. I looked at them too as I was kind of going through, and that was another team I kind of gave a glance at, and I agree. They're very much like that. They're kind of feast or famine. If they're hot, they're tough to beat. Yeah, and of course their coach. I mean, he's great at pumping up the crowd in the student
Yeah,
section. So
I'd like
gotta
to wear a shirt, right?
gotta wear your
Yeah.
shirt, please. And one thing that you brought up there too, I just want to mention this real quick because it's funny in the game of basketball. You know, you said, like a team that had, maybe they made a lot of threes, but they had a lot of open threes. So I think that sometimes becomes a strange argument in certain games because they're like, oh, well, they couldn't miss. They made 13 threes. Well, you left them wide open on 12 of them. Like, I mean, yeah, their percentage goes up when they're comfortable just standing out there getting set. I mean, that's what you want to do. There are games, certainly, where you don't expect, and especially when a team doesn't do that consistently, then that's when you kind of get mad about it. But yeah, when you're giving them the opportunity and kind of just leaving them alone, that's a different story. So you kind of got to look at it through the lens of how the game played too. So that's always something that's interesting to keep a little eye on. Moving on to the next conference here, this the last hurrah here for the old Pac-12 before the Conference of Champions goes away, and Bill
How
Walton
many
cries
how
in his
many
suit.
tears? Yeah, you think Bill Wong's gonna shed there?
I can't believe he didn't single-handedly save this thing. He's been the one to
He's got
do
some
it, but
deep pockets. Yeah, he
yeah,
should have ponied up, man.
no
But
kidding.
hey, could why wasn't he ever looked for the commissioner of the league? He could have
Exactly.
saved everything. Yeah,
Yeah. They had two clowns back to back that absolutely destroyed it. So, yeah, it couldn't have been any worse. I mean, yeah, the guy's goofy, but he probably would have done some better things than they did. So, who knows? But this is another one, though. I guess when I looked at this, I'm like, yeah, I don't see the top team getting beat because they've been so good all season long. They've got kind of the players top to bottom to get it done. I think Arizona wins this tournament. Now there are a couple of teams that I wouldn't put it out of the realm of possibilities could jump up and snag this thing too. The other team that I kind of looked at as maybe a dark horse, and they were a team that was like absolutely loved before the season started. And their favor kind of fell after the first few weeks, but Colorado. They're a team that has got some playmakers, some future NBA guys on the team for sure, and they could be one that jumps up and makes some noise here in this tournament. But I think the Cats are going to win this and get themselves in good position to possibly be one of those top seeds.
yeah. This was the one I just couldn't. There's no way you could see anything else. Honestly, like I get that stuff happens, and it's obviously there's always a chance, but this was almost the most surefire pick that I think we had of all these conferences, and probably wouldn't even have made the pick if had it not been for their last year, just
Yeah.
because of it. the lack of competition that I think is going to play out in this tourney here in Vegas. But for all those other teams, I guess you get one last trip to Sin City, so they can at least enjoy a night or two there. I'm same with you. I'm taking Arizona. They've had, I mean, just kind of some pretty big blowouts this year, but to kind of lean towards that other thing I mentioned earlier about maybe something crazy happened. They've had a handful of stinkers this year, maybe so. If you want to maybe look at why they won't win it, I guess that'd be the only thing. They're still minus 160, so that's a when it comes to conference tournaments, you look at even the number one seeds having plus money in every other league, basically, to be to be having to get that number kind of shows you what probably is going to play. And I had the same underdog. I mean, it was hard to. This was even hard to pick an underdog because I could see Colorado getting beaten their first game or making it to the finals. So 6-game winning streak. So I guess maybe they're playing well and they'll kind of carry that momentum into the tournament. They're plus 500. I know Washington State was the second seed, so maybe give them a run. But yeah, we picked the dark horse for every league, so we'll pick Colorado. But I think Arizona is going to win and probably win pretty easily.
Yeah, I mean, as far as a fun story is concerned, that Washington State certainly has been that for college basketball this year a little bit. If you've followed that at all, they've kind of been the surprise fun team, and yeah, maybe they make a little bit of run or at least get to that final against Arizona and get a shot. But I just look at this and I think, holy crap, I can't wait for Big 12 basketball next year because this is going to be bananas. I mean, the two teams that we're talking about that we think maybe have a chance to win this thing, and one of them definitely going to win it, they're both going to be in the conference. So it's like, wow, you add a basketball league that's already been kind of recognized as one of the best, and this probably puts them firmly atop of the pile with adding two programs like that. So going to be a lot of fun down the road in the Big 12 for sure. I do want to mention real quick, even though I don't think this one is that much of a contest either. The Big East is still a formidable basketball conference, and obviously the reigning national champion is from there, and I think they're going to easily be the conference champion here once again, because UConn has just been absolutely guns a-blazing here this last half of the season. Again, I don't know how you have such a great season like that. You lose a couple of great guys, and you seem to still find all the same types of pieces. Like they've got the guys all in the right positions that do the little things that they need to be a good team, and they play so well together off of each other. If you watch them play, there's a lot of extra pass or there's a lot of lobs, and this guy's right in the right spot to be there to throw it down. They're just such a good, well-rounded team. I don't see anybody beating UConn. If I was going to throw a dark horse out there, there have been times where I've seen Seton Hall play really well here this year. There's certainly been Jekyll and Hyde. They've had some stinkers as well along the way, but they've got the guys that could maybe make some noise and make them interesting. I certainly wouldn't say that Creighton's a team to just overlook. They're playing well right now. They've been on a heater here lately, and they're such a reliant offensive team. If they're shooting the ball well, they're going to be really hard to beat because that's what they are. They shoot the ball and a lot from three, and if they make those, then they're tough to stop. But when you come to the end of the year, that's not always something you can hang your hat on, and especially when you're going to play a team like UConn that's going to lock you down defensively. So that's why I kind of see that playing out that way. I don't know if you had any thoughts there on the Big East at all.
Yeah, I mean, I do think same kind of similar to the Pac-12. How I feel the top seed or I guess they're the number 2 seed. Oh no, that's ranking. They're number 1 seed. The stupid ESPN app. I was like, what the hell are you doing? It's like, how are they not the number 1 seed? Why would you put their ranking instead of the freaking seed?
That's dumb.
Ranking doesn't matter anymore. Like it never really does throughout the season.
True.
Stupid NET and quad 1 and quad 2 bullshit. But anyways,
Joe Lenardi cares.
They did have a couple. Letdowns here and there, but that's kind of just par for the course, part of the season. I try to get behind a team like Marquette, something like that, and then they then they get the crap kicked out of them. So it's really hard to even pick anybody else for that matter. I could see even the Seton Hall you mentioned. They look good, and then when it comes to nut cutting time and the lights are on, they can't do shit. So I can't really even pick a dark horse in that. But I would expect UConn to win. I guess it's one of the the bigger basketball conferences now. But as far as the big dance, I don't know if one of these teams will make a run this year. I guess we'll have to wait and see. But I don't know if that's going to play out the way it did last year.
Yeah, and I guess kind of what I alluded to before we started, we win a lot of ones here. There's a lot of teams that are at the top of their conference that really look like they're the best team in that conference. There are some others that could definitely, kind of get in the right spot as far as a bracket is concerned and make a run. And that certainly will happen. It always does. But the way we see it right now, I think some of the top teams really got a lock on kind of, it's theirs to lose, so to speak, the way that this is shaping up. So it'll be fun. I'm sure we'll see a couple surprises here over even this weekend that we don't see coming. But that's why we love the game and we love college basketball. So hopefully you'll have some fun making some plays with all of these games here over the weekend. We've kind of, course, given you an indication where we're going with some of this stuff. We'll probably throw some other things out there for you, just kind of little teasers, or if we see something that's maybe kind of interesting as far as taking a flyer on somebody, if we get a good number on the right day, as these go day to day, we're going to see different lines. So we might throw some stuff out there. So certainly follow us on social media. If you're on the X platform, Twitter, follow us at SJMBets, at Cherokee CP. We'll have that stuff there for you. Of course, the podcast can be liked and shared in all kinds of different platforms as well. Spotify is our hosting home, but you can find us everywhere else as well, whether it be Apple, through Google, iHeartRadio, whether it's YouTube. We're on all those locations, so you can find the podcast there and listen to us at your convenience. And then, of course, we would welcome any of your feedback as well. So if you've got something that you're looking at as a play over the weekend, give us a shout, tag us there on something you post online, and we'll get back to you. And then, of course, we'd appreciate if you would, like, subscribe, share, all that good stuff on those different podcast platforms as well. So, yeah, great time of year. Got to start figuring out how I'm getting all those damn TVs organized and set up here. And I'm still slacking on the whole, my homestead isn't the way I want it to be yet. But thanks to the good old technology situation, you can have the TV going, and of course, if you're a YouTube TV subscriber, then you get the multicast going. That's good. Mm. And then you can put another TV here. You can get the laptop out. You can get the phone going. You can do all kinds of stuff. It's great. Love it.
Yeah, that's basically the only reason I have an iPad is to watch games on it. I mean, I do some other things there and there, but it's mostly just as another screen that to have to watch. But yeah, I mean, maybe we'll have to look into this beer draft too and get that going for next week. We'll see what we can dig up there.
Yeah, that's a good idea. We're going to have to do that, I think. So be sure to tune in here next week for us as well. We'd appreciate that. So that's SJ Munoz. I'm Chris Parks. Thanks for joining us for another week of Every Day We're Covering. We'll see you next week for March Madness and some more covers.